Tyson Fury. A little bit of an up and down year, an up and down performance with Ngannou, but the eyes on the prize are with Usyk, February 17. Talk about another big matchup and a chance for you to crown the undisputed heavyweight champion and promote the undisputed heavyweight champion. What's the latest updates you could offer around that fight? I know it's been announced, but any new developments?
Well, I'm friendly with Usyk, and I've known Alexander for years now. He's such a great friend of Lomachenko and Igis Klimas. And Usyk is a very smart fighter. He prepares extremely well. He's fearless, and that'll be a real test for Lomachenko, for Fury. I think that that Fury knows that, and I know that he has been training assiduously for the fight. He left the UK. He went to Jeddah, which is on the Red Sea. He likes the water, to train for this fight without distractions. And so it's the best of Fury. Now, let's be honest. You watch Fury last fight with Ngannou, and either he really wasn't prepared for that fight, or he's lost a step. When fighters get up in age, that happens. Now, I really believe it's the former, that Fury didn't prepare as well as he should for Ngannou, who, by the way, has the tools to become a force in the heavyweight division. But that being said, we're going to see on February 17th whether Fury and I really believe that it's going to be a fascinating fight.
Absolutely. And, with the influx of the funds from Saudi Arabia that have been coming into the sport, we finally see these big heavyweight fights that we've been asking for, the Fab Four, if we want to call them, Wilder and Joshua, separate fights this weekend. Seems like they're going to be fighting each other next year as well. Looks like Tyson Fury will keep himself busy with a rematch with the Usyk fight, regardless of the decision. Is that the plan for Fury, to fight Usyk regardless of the decision in a rematch next year?
I think that it was a 2-fight deal that the Saudis made. Yes, so there would be a rematch. But
gotcha.
Again, among the other heavyweights, who will be watching on December 23rd, people are looking ahead to a Joshua Wilder fight because it's been talked about for so long. But let me tell you, Joshua, I believe, has his work cut out for him with Otto Wallin. I think Otto Wallin is going to beat him. I think Otto Wallin is a really underrated fighter. I think he has a lot of skills, and I like him to win over Joshua. I think Wilder will be okay with Joseph Parker, who's a good fighter but doesn't have the firepower to match Wilder. But I think Wallin could upset the apple cart. I really believe that.
And of course, you got a almost taste of that in 2019 when he almost disrupted the master plan you had with the Wilder rematch, cut Fury's eye to nearly 50 stitches, very spirited performance. And, he looked good against in the Garcia fight, close fight, but, Otto Wallin is definitely a game contender in that fight. But Wilder Joshua, if that fight happens, who do you see winning?
Wilder. Yeah, I'm not a big Joshua fan. Not that I have anything against him, but let's be honest about it. His performances have been spotty, and he hasn't demonstrated the ability to take the fight to his opponent. That's why Usyk was able to beat him twice, although he's a much smaller guy. I think Joshua is a good fighter, but not on the level of Fury or Wilder or as Usyk demonstrated.
Mm-hmm. That fight, February, it's happening in February, Usyk and Fury, but you guys are kicking off the new year with a bang. January 13, Arthur Beterbiev, Callum Smith. That fight was originally supposed to take place earlier this year, got rescheduled due to Beterbiev's injury. But talk about a fight that sets up another big fight. Your guy is Beterbiev, owns 3 of the 4 belts. Bivol, he's fighting this weekend. And I know the Saudis have, again, high interest in that undisputed light heavyweight fight. Can we once and for all guarantee, Bob, that Bivol and Beterbiev will take place in 2024?
Well, like you said, the Saudis are interested in Beterbiev and Bivol, and that means they'll cut checks to each fighter that nobody else can match. And so obviously, I think that fight can happen. Again, I remember with all the problems with Fury and Usyk, the percentages, the deals, and back and forth. Well, the Saudis come in and they just cut checks to the 2 fighters, and that's the end of the story. And the checks are so big that neither fighter cares particularly what the other guy is getting. Well, with Beterbiev, should he be successful in January, and Bivol, the same thing's going to happen. There won't be any debate about what the percentages are, because as long as the checks written for each guy are big enough, the fighters are really happy.
I know you've previously been adamant about keeping your fighters on ESPN and having the fights be staged on ESPN platforms, but once the money becomes too big to pass, does that at that point open the floodgates? They can fight anywhere they want?
No, but you have to understand what the Saudis are doing. The Saudis realize that those commitments are legally binding. So the way they get around all the problems is they have the big fights so far, as you've seen, on pay-per-view. And if the fights are on pay-per-view, there's no argument about which platform has the fights, because it turns out that everyone does. For example, on the Ngannou fight with Fury, everybody had the ability to offer the pay-per-view in the United States and in the United Kingdom. The same thing is happening December 23rd. Not only is DAZN distributing the pay-per-view to its subscribers, but ESPN Plus is distributing it to its subscribers, and the cable companies and through in-demand and the satellites are also distributing it. So the issue of a fighter not fighting on a platform which may have contractual rights it doesn't exist.
That's music to the ears of, I'm sure, fight fans. I'm sure fighters as well too, who sometimes get tied up into the business of boxing, as we all know it, the other side of the street, as it's been so commonly coined. But speaking of
Oh, but
pay-per-views,
there's also a downside to it. The
mhm,
downside is that a lot of these events, I would prefer being offered to the fans without paying for them, without a paywall. It's been easy to do with the Saudis because the way that problem is solved is letting everybody distribute it. But again, wouldn't it be great if Fury and Usyk was on free television? That would be great for the sport, and certainly better be off in Bivol. But in this world, you can't have everything, and so at least it enables these events to happen.
absolutely. And I know you take pride in building the fighters in their hometowns and their markets. And the sport is being built in a completely different market right now, which it hasn't been, which wasn't relevant even a handful of years ago, but now it very much is. And that's where all the big fights are taking place
Well,
at.
you understand, I'm an old guy, so I remember uh, uh, on a different level that starting in the 80s, fights that would be on in Madison Square Garden or other arenas, the big fights shifted to Las Vegas. I mean, or most of the big fights with the Four Kings took place at casinos in Vegas, mostly Caesar's Palace at that point. And that changed everything in the sport of boxing. And
Mhm.
now we're seeing a major change taking place with the involvement of the Saudis. And, you know, uh, I think rather than fight that, it's good to cooperate and go along with it and see where it goes. And I remember back in the 80s with the support of Caesar's Palace and doing all of those fights. It was a great era for boxing. And the same thing can now happen with the Saudis backing the sport, even though the major fights, of course, will take place in the kingdom. So, again, nothing is 100%. Everything has its compromises in life and business. And I think we have to be pleased that we're going to see these big fights no matter where they take place.